本次会议即将开始，请您尽快就座，并将手机等通讯设备关闭或置于静音状态。谢谢您的合作。
Ladies and gentlemen, the event will begin shortly. Can we please ask for you to kindly take your seats? We would like to remind you again to switch off all mobile phones and put electronic devices to silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation.
Now we're going to go to the first session on the morning, which is about 2026 China Economic Outlook and release of China Financial Policy Report. Now I'd like to invite our moderator, Mr. He Haifeng, former Chief Economist, Guotai Junan Securities, to moderate this session.
2026 China Financial Policy Report. Let's warmly welcome the moderator, Mr. He Haifeng, Executive Leader of the Program for China Financial Policy Report, former Chief Economist, Guotai Junan Securities.
Distinguished participants, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Tsinghua PBCSF Global Finance Forum 2026. I'm He Haifeng, Executive Leader of the Program for China Financial Policy Report. And we're going to conduct a session on 2026 China Economic Outlook and Financial Outlook as well, in particular the release of China Financial Policy Report 2026. Our audience on site and online are most warmly welcome. Again, we'd like to thank our strategic partner, Shanghai Pudong Development Bank, for your help and support. Let me say a few words about all the speakers for this session. First, Mr. Ding Zhijie, Director of Research Institute of the PBOC. Member of the 14th CPPCC National Committee, Deputy Director of Economic Affairs Committee of CPPCC, Dr. and Professor Qi Bing. Member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the People's Bank of China and Special Term Professor of Tsinghua PBCSF, Professor Huang Haizhou. Secretary of Party Committee and President of Insurance Association of China, Dr. Zhao Yulong. And President Zhao is also professor. Professor and doctoral supervisor, School of International Financial Law, East China University of Political Science and Law, Professor Xu Ming. Professor Xu Ming was the first chairman of Beijing Stock Exchange and senior advisor Narodowy Bank Polski Advisory Council member of OMFIM, Paweł Kolewski. Warmest welcome to all of you. Financial Policy Report was first launched in 2010. Out of the past 16 years, we've always focused on what's happening in China with a global view. And we have consecutively issued 16 reports in both Chinese and English, analyzing pros and cons of existing policies with policy recommendations. And the project has an expert panel consisting of senior experts and scholars. In addition to those experts and scholars, we have a vibrant team of interns. Many of them come from world-famous universities at home and abroad, and some of those team members are also present here today. They are the future of the financial sector of China. Next, let's kick off the release of the China Financial Policy Report. First, I want to invite Mr. Ding Zhijie to launch the report. He's director of a research institute of the People's Bank of China. Distinguished participants, leading officials, experts, scholars, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my great pleasure to participate in this session with the launch of China Financial Policy Report. Entrusted by the former Vice Governor of PBOC, Wu Xiaoling, we are conducting this release here. And there are many heavyweight guests and panelists present here today. I'll be very brief and succinct in the interest of time. In three macro aspects. First, what we call the 5 major tasks of finance in China. So the report is anchored on building a leading financial power with implementation of the 5 major tasks. Because those 5 tasks are strategic requirements for becoming a leading financial power. Back in 2023, at the Central Financial Work meeting, President Xi Jinping asked for sci-tech, green inclusive pension, and digital finance as 5 key tasks. And for all 5 aspects, there are concrete plans. For example, for sci-tech finance, it should focus on key breakthroughs. For green finance, we must think out of the box. And for inclusive finance, we must meet the needs of the people where they are, while making sure that financial products with security, good returns, and liquidity could be offered to ordinary households. And for pension finance, the system should be further amplified with more benefits delivered. We have a lot of pension experts present here today. For digital finance, we must grasp all the opportunities while keeping the guardrail against risks. For the 5 major financial tasks, it means that in the process of building a financial power, we must adhere to the path with Chinese characteristics in financial sector development. The very important part of it is the China-specific financial culture. We quoted from a speech made by President Xi Jinping in 2024 at a workshop targeting provincial and regional leaders. He described the key elements of China-specific financial culture. There are 2 quotes in particular here. First, for the finance sector, it must serve the desired functions and missions. Second, we must keep in mind China's specifics. So with those remarks and with those strategies, there are different interpretations, but the consensus is that we must observe how modern finance works with specific Chinese circumstances kept in mind. And talking about Chinese statistics, in the logic of economics, we should address unmet needs with the development of the financial sector. To put it plainly, we must find the right balance between the different component parts of the financial sector and the financial sector as a whole. So the sum of all the parts is greater than the holistic financial sector is greater than the sum of all its parts. And more importantly, we should always guard against the outbreak of a systemic financial crisis or risks. And second, we must make sure that the financial developments will have positive externality for its recipients, the general public, the economy, etc. In this way, as one of the sectors of the national economy, finance will provide the role of an engine and catalyst for national economic development. So for the externality of finance sector, we must make sure that we have positive instead of negative externality. On this basis, the central government has mandated the 5 major tasks of the financial sector. And with that, some top-tier policies and circulars have been issued in March last year. The General Affairs Office of the State Council issued a guideline on those 5 tasks. According to the 15th five-year plan, it was said that we must expedite the process of building China into leading financial power with all 5 tasks mentioned and highlighted, which means in the finance sector, centered on those 5 major tasks, more and intensified efforts will be made. That's the first point about the report. And secondly, with 5 major tasks in mind, out of the past couple of years, what have been the concrete initiatives and results? That's the second question we want to answer. Yes, the finance should assist in the higher quality development of the national economy. It should help with the supply side reform of the economy, supply side structural reform of the economy. Please take a look at the table on the right-hand side. By the end of 2025, we could see the changes in the loan books of the banking sector tilted towards projects associated with those 5 major tasks. And then for the rest of the slides, we have provided an overview of the key initiatives since the conclusion of the 18th CPC National Congress. First, about sci-tech finance. On sci-tech finance, in 2025, PBOC optimized structural monetary policy tools in favor of sci-tech finance, with more loans extended at lower interest in the realm of sci-tech finance. And also, sci-tech SMEs have enjoyed growing loan extension with more favorable terms. Well, there are the following notes about this point. In terms of the mode of economic development, China is evolving from factor-driven growth to innovation-driven growth. out of the past several years, in terms of the overall trends, we have kept talking about new quality productive forces, new quality productivity. Periodic milestones have been achieved. For example, even with a grim tariff situation in 2025, our trade volume made new highs, which means we have stayed competitive. Out of the 5 major tasks on sci-tech, the banking sector will continue to play a dominant role, because in terms of the proportions of the makeup of the financial assets, assets held by banks account for 90% of assets held by all financial institutions. Therefore, banks should be more innovative in their loan extension model and the application of fintech capabilities, so as to provide mid to long-term capital support for sci-tech businesses and strategic emerging sectors. And capital market needs to play a pivotal role in sci-tech finance. Therefore, we should spare no effort in increasing the share of direct financing in the further development of the capital market, so as to provide full life cycle financial services for sci-tech innovations. We must remove the bottlenecks for long-term capital to be ushered into the capital market. We, out of 28 trillion RMB yuan of pension and related and long-term deposits, only 3 trillion have been entrusted, have been mandated to the SCSSF, National Social Security Fund, to make equity and other investments. For the rest, they stay dormant in the banks. And then let me say a few words about green finance. Out of the past decade, we have made a lot of headway in green finance with a lot of supportive policies. And on green finance and inclusive finance, we are ahead of rest of the world. I will not go through all the details. But for green development in China, according to my observation, we are differentiating ourselves from others in that, first and foremost, we're leveraging technology and finance as the engine and the catalyst to drive towards the dual carbon policy objective, carbon neutrality, carbon peak and carbon neutrality. And thirdly, I want to say a few words about inclusive finance. On inclusive finance, back in 2013, on the 3rd plenum of the 18th CPC Congress, the concept of the inclusive finance was highlighted. Later, we have had numerous what we call opinions on the development of inclusive finance or guidelines. In this way, we aim to make financial services inclusive for more people, for the general public. And next one is pension finance, especially with demographics changes and aging population. There's a greater need for pension finance. In 2024, the General Affairs Office of the State Council issued an opinion on the development of what we call the silver economy. And the PBOC established 500 billion consumption and pension refinancing facility. And so far, 1,200 products of this kind have been rolled out. And next, last but not the least, is about digital finance. There are 2 aspects in digital finance. First, the digitalization of finance, including digitalization of financial institutions and their operations. Secondly, finance is playing a bigger part in supporting the development of the digital economy. By the end of last year, the total loans extended to the digital economy reached 8.6 trillion RMB yuan. Therefore, as the artery and the blood-making machine of the economy, the financial sector is providing an increasingly important role for the development of the digital economy in China, for the digital transformation in China. And then in a systematic and holistic way, we must firmly implement 5 major tasks in building China into a leading financial power.
During the 15th five-year plan period, how can we move forward with the 5 major pillars? 3 points. First, continue to have better overarching design. Second, strengthen positive incentive for financial institutions. Third, comprehensively improve their service capacity. Finally, for our outlook, during the 15th five-year plan period, financial work should serve the high-quality development, systematically have better positioning, better resource allocation. As China is shifting from the old to new economic drivers, we need to deepen economic structural reform, promote industry restructuring, in particular energy demographic changes. The financial institutions must proactively adapt to strategic needs, take stock of the structural reshaping, and make use of the synergistic adjustment of all industries, and holistically promote a better institutional framework. During the 15th five-year plan period, financial work should anchor high-quality development, be aligned with high-quality, faster-paced development, continue to do a better job in the 5 major pillars so that the financial system can serve the modernization with Chinese characteristics. The institutional arrangement should be fully fledged, be proactive in risk mitigation, have self-discipline and self-reliance, provide financial safeguard to high-quality economic development. That's the major content of the release, and we stand ready to be corrected. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ding Zhijie, for releasing the report. He has given a bird's-eye view of the 5 major pillars to accelerate the building of a financial powerhouse, as stated by the 15th five-year plan. In overarching design, institutional encouragement, we need to have a policy synergy, structural improvement. Now, we will have the roundtable panel discussion. I'd like to invite the 5 guests I've introduced to come to the podium. Please join me in giving a warm hand to the panelists. Please, panelists, come to the podium and sit accordingly. Thank you, Professor Ding Zhijie, for releasing the report. In a very brief manner, you have also saved the time for us. Our 5 panelists in the first round will give thematic presentations. First, I'd like to invite renowned experts from both home and abroad, and who has an engineering and financial background, Mr. Qi Bing, to address us first. I have prepared slides. Can you help me to put it up? Thank you. Morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizer, for the invitation. It's my great honor to participate in this forum and discuss the financial development during the 15th five-year plan period. I have been a witness of the development of PBCSF of Tsinghua University. I'm delighted to contribute a bit. I'm happy to see the ever-growing size of PBCSF and its contribution to financial work of the country. I commend the high quality of the report released by Professor Ding. I'd like to share with you some of my observations on the report. 3 points. First, the development of a financial powerhouse. I'd like to shed some light on sci-tech finance and pension finance. China attaches great importance to financial development, as it is the blood of economic and social development of the country. Since 2023, on the Central Economic and Finance Work Conference, financial powerhouse was initially brought forward. We unswervingly follow the path of developing a financial powerhouse to let the financial sector better serve the real economy. President Xi has recently stressed that the finance is to serve the real economy. This is our ultimate goal. Professor Ding has reviewed development outcomes of finance in the 14th five-year plan period. In general, the financial sector has seen the total AUM exceeding 50 billion yuan, and the stock market size is number 2 across the world. New loans, 17.2 billion, including a huge and enormous amount for direct lending to the real economic sectors. For a long time, we have been using indirect financing, and the U.S. has been directly financing the real economy. A modern financial sector should have a better balance between direct and indirect financing. I need to mention in particular the registration system is landed with a heavier support to the high-tech and sci-tech sectors. The overall lending percentage exceeded 45%. I would also like to mention the development of Hong Kong financial market, as I have been working in Hong Kong for some time. In 2025, IPO 173, the fundraising has increased by 300%, bringing economic recovery quickly. And there is also the benign interaction between Hong Kong stock market and Asia market. High-tech industries take more than half of those funded companies, among which one half is for the IT industries. When I was in Hong Kong, we promoted a job accelerate the IPO in Hong Kong stock market by domestic mainland companies. We believe only the liquidity at the source can regenerate the market. The high-tech industry and startup industry businesses getting their IPOs listed in Hong Kong stock market has been a major driver of the revival of the Hong Kong stock market. In this round of AI competition, Hong Kong market fundraising has also brought about the championship of domestic startup companies. That has echoed the views of President Xi Jinping. Financial sector must serve the real economy to be stronger, and the real economy, only with the support of the financial sector, can realize rapid development. Looking into the 15th five-year plan period, much has been highlighted by Professor Ding. 6 strengthening. Among the 5 major financial pillars, I want to focus more on sci-tech and pension finance. We are in the AI era. I have been asking AI. I asked China AI Doubao, what is your understanding of the plan? Deepen capital market reform, strengthen direct financing, optimize financing and investment structures. I believe other panelists will also shed light on the understanding of the 15th five-year plan period financial sector. I emphasize the role of capital market. In modern society's development, all the strong countries, nations come from a strong financial sector. The financial activities can be traced to the ancient Rome, where there was the earliest stock market. We are familiar with the Venice merchants in Italy, which talked about the lending or indirect financing. When the Dutch rose, Amsterdam Exchange was on the upper left, and the agreement was signed in the lower left. Later, the rise of the London Exchange, the New York Exchange, and they accompanied the rise of Dutch and the rise of England and the rise of America. Capital market will drive market resource allocation, and this is the advanced form of market economy. Years before, when I was working with the private sector, I wrote an article on how the capital market has been correlated with the rise and the collapse of the powers. There is no exception today. After the 2008 financial crisis, the Dow Jones index has risen from 7,000 to 50,000. Microsoft used to be considered as the greatest company in the world, and later we saw the latecomers Amazon and other flagship companies. What is most surprising? In Silicon Valley, the 9 heroes of AI, and 5 of them are Chinese, of Chinese origin. The American capital market's miracle was driven by capital market plus the tech giants. And that explains the major reasons of the continuous and sustained economic growth in U.S. Looking ahead, in China's capital market, the market will play a bigger role in economic development, which started with the 1978 Mr. Deng Xiaoping's statement on a persistent support to capital market in 1974 when Mr. Deng Xiaoping visited New York. He visited Wall Street, and it was Mr. Deng Xiaoping who proposed that the biggest driver of U.S. economy or behind the economic strength of the U.S. was its strong capital market, the Wall Street. In 2024, the State Council has asked for the open, safe, transparent, and resilient capital market development. Later, the World Conferences emphasized the comprehensive reform of financing and investment structure. My understanding is that we must deepen the market-oriented reform of capital market. We must attract long-term investment into the capital market, as stated by Professor Ding. For the future world, China and the U.S. will continue to be the rivalries. U.S. economy, Chinese economy, and the rest economy of the world. U.S. economy is driven by Wall Street, and similarly, Chinese economy must be sustained and driven by capital market, synergistic development of Asia market and Hong Kong stock exchange market to be more globalized. And for the Asia market, it has a huge potential. I couldn't agree more with Professor Ding that we must ensure steady advancement of capital market, persist with high-quality development, have better legislation, strict law enforcement, and be value-driven. I would also like to mention briefly sci-tech finance and pension finance. These are two financial centers in the US and China. We find similarities. China has Shenzhen Exchange, Shanghai Stock Exchange, and Beijing Stock Exchange. We couldn't avoid the mentioning of AI when we talk about capital market, which is the biggest driver for economic activities and which may bring about disruptive forces. It may open a new chapter of high-tech research, including the protein structure prediction, conductive material, and it may emphasize the Matthew effect of high tech. It may trigger the generation of new professions, and it has taken away and replaced some of the jobs for the white collars. But in the next 5 years, it is predicted 170 million jobs will be created. AI will reshape economic and social life, bring about structural changes. Agentic robots are deeply penetrated into all corners of life, promoting the better integration of a virtual and a real world, bring about new business forms. It can also reshape the power contrasts among nations. We cannot afford to miss the opportunity of AI development. Nothing might be more illustrative than this table. In the PE industry, if we look at national comparison, we rank number 2, but the US is taking a safe lead. And this speaks volume for itself. If we look at the development trend in 2026 first quarter, the growth was 4 times of the fourth quarter of 2025. There has been exponential growth. To better understand AI's impact on social life, we conducted a survey with Tsinghua University and asked President Lu Mei to have a private session. We invited 10 startup companies, average age 30 or 25 to 45 years old. They have been engaged in startup business for 3 to 8 years. Each startup team has the project valued at over 10 dozens of billions. Everybody was waiting for IPO list in Hong Kong. What impressed me most was that in their respective areas, they have neared or surpassed the peers in Silicon Valley who have been their classmates graduating from the same Tsinghua University. Across the Pacific Ocean, for those in Silicon Valley, half of the AI talents are Chinese. In other words, they come from the same graduation, academic disciplines, and what they compete will be underpinned by their institutional arrangement and financial support. Let's have a brief comparison here between China and US on the lower left. In 2015, in the top-notch academic journals, Tsinghua was ranking behind the 10, and later among the first top 10s, and then number 2, surpassing MIT and Google. And on the lower right, these are the startup teams from Tsinghua University. AI computation for the future will be decided by China and the US. Both of them are flagship businesses. Algorithm in China is stronger. And for computing sector, we have a better electricity protection, but we have few capital investment. Therefore, we should consolidate the strength and make up the loopholes, accelerate the AI development, take the first mover advantage. In this round of competition, we didn't see EU and Japan. I hope our Poland colleague can bring back the message to let EU to catch up.
But what is the issue that is revealed? It means that without the support of a market-oriented financial system, it's difficult to capture the signals of the rise of high-techs, and it's difficult to provide rapid support. Both China and the US have relatively developed capital markets to support, while the direct financing systems in Europe and Japan are relatively backward. So we talked about the support from finance to AI and technology. Let's do a simple comparison to see the gap. Well, actually, the gap is very large, and we need to give it a very thorough consideration and make actions. And through listed on Nasdaq and the New York Stock Exchange, and capital is raised quickly. And according to the estimation, in the very beginning, the market capital raised would exceed $600 billion. And in China, the number is $37 billion. So the US capital raised is 4 times of that of last year, and 90% is related to AI. And according to Goldman Sachs' prediction, the U.S. fundraising amount this year will exceed that figure. And OpenAI, SpaceX, and Anthropic, and a series of star companies are planning to go public this year. However, the current channels for AI companies to raise funds through IPOs are mainly focused on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And we went to Hong Kong to promote the development of the capital market, and there were 100 million companies queued up to be listed. Now the number has risen to 500. So the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is very well developed. And according to our knowledge, AI-related enterprises account for 1/3. So we are thinking how to give full play to the role of the A-share market. So there are a few suggestions. First, construct an AI investment and financing support system. And second, deepen capital market reform, and so that we can offer the AI and the technology companies in the A-share market and provide opportunities for long-term investors. And third, follow the laws of sci-tech innovation and the realities of startup and development. And fourth, relying on our strong manufacturing industry and advantages of a mega-scale market. I would like to especially mention the team from Tsinghua University. And in terms of the ownership of the innovation, there's a 70-30 ratio, so it can stimulate innovation. And fifthly, maintain an open landscape, deepen international cooperation, learn and surpass through openness and competition, and actively participate in global AI governance. And lastly, I want to talk about pension finance. The 2 graphs here are quite convincing. And from the left, it shows the time that it takes for a country to transition from agent to deeply agent, and it takes France 126 years, the US a little over 70 years, and China 21 years. We used to say that the aging was a problem faced by developed capitalist countries, and we are immune from it. But it turns out that we aged faster than anyone else. And when entering the affluent society and the modern society, it's a common phenomenon. The right chart is also very telling. It shows that China's pension reserves are far from enough. For OECD countries, the average is 43%, and the number is 14% for China. For developed countries, the United States, for example, is 160%, and 200% for Netherlands. And this is the 3 industries in China. The gap between China's first, second, and third pillars is huge compared to that of the developed countries. Our first pillar, supported by the government, is 63.5% of the total. And for the US, it's 5.3%, and UK is 2.4%. Second pillar account also for a very small portion. It means that China's basic pension system dominates. And the SMEs have not yet widely established the enterprise annuity system. The third pillar relies on individual buying pension insurance, which is really insufficient. The second pillar has expanded, which balanced the pension responsibilities among the state, enterprise, and the individuals. In the morning, when I discussed with some of our colleagues, we chatted about Joker's pension revolution, and the book was published in 1976. Which seeks to balance the responsibilities between the state, the individual, and the enterprise. In 1984, that is 80 years later, the United States introduced the 401k plan. I worked at the China Securities Regulatory Commission for 16 years, from 2000 to 2016. I wanted to promote the entry of pensions into the market in order to convince everybody. I did a survey, or rather a study. I studied the 401k plan, and since its launch in the United States in 1984, I studied the American households' wealth and the Dow Jones Index. If the correlation coefficient is positive and greater than 50%, it will be very convincing, and the result is 98%. Several days ago, I led a team to do a survey in the State Council's pension area. Coincidentally, they also cited data from 1998 to 2022. They calculated the correlation between the retirement account and the S&P 500 index in the United States. The correlation coefficient is 96%. So I think that the capital market has soared up and the high-tech industries are springing up. And the aspects have established virtuous interactions. And China's household sector has accumulated huge wealth, and proportion of investment truly allocated to long-term pension is extremely low. And only 1% is allocated to the A-shares market. But the average level for developed countries and the global average is 20%. So we need to coordinate the mechanism of responsibility balance of the insurance, pension insurance, and continuously deepen the reform of the investment side, and create a capital market environment conducive to pension investment, promote the orderly transfer of the household wealth to the pension insurance, and provide stable support for the development. And thirdly, promote the inclusive and the balanced development of the pension finance, develop more inclusive pension finance products so that we can accomplish the last mile of pension financial services. So that wraps up my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Qi Bin. Professor Qi shared with us his first-hand experience and presented us some case studies, as well as his studies and service. So very insightful and very intensive information. And he talked about the capital market and how to empower the nation through finance. He also touched upon the AI competition in AI and pointed out some of the unique and the structural issues. So thank you very much, Dr. Qi. And now I would like to invite Professor Huang Haizhou to make some remarks, who is a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the People's Bank of China. So thank you. We have 55 minutes left. There are 4 panelists yet to speak. So I would manage my speaking time within 4 minutes so that we have half an hour for discussion. The topic that I was given by the host or moderator is to answer the question as to how to establish a strong currency. And in Dr. Dean's report just now, it was actually mentioned that, in fact, what the central government proposed is mainly to strengthen 6 areas and to conduct 5 priorities. I think a strong central bank and a strong currency are the top of the agenda. And I don't represent the Monetary Policy Committee. It should be the People's Bank of China, represented by Director Ding, right? I think so. In this case, a strong central bank, a strong currency, a strong financial ecosystem, a strong institution, and a strong talent. These are the 5 very important priorities or missions for the PBCSF. And I think 3 viewpoints about the currency that I want to make. The first one is that the global monetary policy is undergoing major adjustments. Yesterday, the seminar also discussed the topic. And the governor, Zhu Ming, also focused on this topic. So I will not go into too many details. I think since the Bretton Woods system, the monetary system established is, of course, dominated by the US dollar. And from the 1945 to 1972 or 3, the US dollar occupied an absolute dominant position. And controlling the capital flow and fixed exchange rates, right? And this system, even though was conducive for the recovery of the global economy post the Second World War, it is not adaptive to the further development of the world. And one important aspect was that under that system, it was difficult for the capital market to develop under the premise of fixed exchange rates. And I think it is related to the development of the global capital market. The necessity and the requirements of global economic development are closely linked. After 1973, the system underwent significant adjustment. And recently, major adjustments have been experienced as well. There are 2 reasons for the adjustments. Reason 1, major powers such as the United States has actually made some relatively big mistakes in the dollar policy. One mistake is to weaponize the dollar. I think it's a very important issue. And second, this system has felt the impact from the fintech. If we have time, we can discuss on this topic as well, which is very important. The US dollar is still the top reserve currency, followed by the euro and the RMB. Talking about the internationalization of RMB and the recent progress, especially in the recent 2 years as China's economy expanded and strengthened its foreign trade, RMB played an even bigger role in terms of international clearance and payment. And there is potential space for further development. This is the first point. And second point, we are in the major change era, and we need to conduct reforms. The reforms also include the reform of IMF, the reform of SDR, and the reform of the shareholding ratio in major countries. And these are very far-sighted and constructive ideas and thoughts. And additionally, how to digitalize SDR and strengthen SDR. And these topics worth our deliberation. And second point, we want to build a strong central bank and a strong currency. There is a condition, very important one, also mentioned by Dr. Qibing, that is to develop a strong capital market. A strong capital market is complementary to strong currency. Take the United States as an example. It's doing quite well in this regard. And for us, we also need to build strong capital market, a strong international financial center. And for investors all over the world who use RMB as an international currency, we should provide high-quality investment products. Without such high-quality investment products, then our ability to internationalize RMB or establish a strong currency would be greatly restricted. I believe you all have your own opinions on that. China has another strength which is very special. That is, we have a very strong international financial center like Hong Kong and Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen as financial centers as well. So a strong currency is closely related with a strong capital market. It is also closely related with strong international trade. Without foreign trade that connect the international system, then it will be difficult to establish a strong currency and a strong capital market. The United States rely on importing from the rest of the world to feed into the domestic consumption, and thus completing the cycle of the system. And in this sense, China is complementary to the US system. Our exports are mainly in manufacturing and in some emerging industries such as new energy vehicles, and the biopharmaceuticals. We're experiencing explosive growth in these sectors. Our foreign trade and exports are conducive to promoting the internationalization of RMB. As for foreign trade exports, we now currently have a trade surplus. Some people believe that if there's a trade surplus, it's difficult for RMB internationalization, but the view is incorrect. In fact, to put it bluntly, the US dollar's long-term dominance after 1945 was accompanied by consistent trade surplus. It's not that the US can only advance internationalization of the dollar through trade deficits. By establishing a robust capital market, I believe that by building a strong capital market and making it more flexible in the downward direction, including allowing more overseas investment in China and even having deficits in the capital account will not be a problem. In the trade and current account, we have surpluses, so the two sides can be connected. I hope we can discuss this further later. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Huang Haizhou. Thank you for saving time for us. He stressed that more open and strong capital market is very important to support the establishment of a strong central bank and a strong currency. So thank you very much, Professor Huang. And now I would like to give the floor to the second largest financial institution in China by assets. Okay, so President Zhao Yulong. Good morning. Today, I would like to share with you my reflections and the knowledge of technology insurance. Technology finance is a very popular topic. When we discuss fintech or tech finance, we often focus on financing issues. We talk about venture capital or risk credit. Because currently the tech credit is often not backed by cash flow. There's usually no collateral assets. So this credit is called venture credit. I think in reality, for the inherent characteristics of the technology industry and technology activities, besides financing and the need for investment and credit, risk protection is also needed. So today, I would like to discuss with you how we can leverage the role of technology insurance and hedge the uncertainties of sci-tech innovation activities with a deterministic consideration or the insurance premium. So how can the tech insurance be a good management tool to support the technology activities? Well, it's because the technology innovation activities have the following basic characteristics. First, the risks are very high and complex. And for the high-risk technology activities, it's a try and error process. No matter it is from the theory perspective or technology aspect or the engineering and market entry stages, there are a lot of risks that need us to manage and address. So for technology activities, we need the venture capital and credit, the risk loans, and more importantly, risk management. That is a tech insurance. And secondly, the technology activities, there is a multiplicity and the iterativity nature in it. So it requires financial instruments to be targeted. So it leads that in terms of the risk management, we need to have a tool to hedge the asset losses so that there is a risk compensation role. Otherwise, the technology activities will fail and die and lack opportunities for comeback. If we only provide investment and cannot make additional investment and only provide credit and required failed technology R&D activities, the tool of insurance, so that they will start again. So that can meet the multiplicity and the iterativity nature.
So sci-tech innovation has longer cycle. It takes 10 years or even decades. It requires patient capital, whereby insurance funds could provide for this role. Therefore, sci-tech insurance could act as a stabilizer, preventing sci-tech activities from being denied because of a single failure. And it can also provide credit enhancement for other lending and loans. And it can also help release innovative momentum of the entire society. Very briefly, talking about the history of sci-tech insurance is divided into 4 stages. First, the exploratory stage prior to from the 1990s to 2006. Because of demand from the market, we started developing some sci-tech insurance products without a big scale. Starting from 2026, at the National Sci-Tech Conference, a mid to long-term plan was issued, encouraging sci-tech insurance to be offered. In June 2006, the 10 regulations on insurance were promulgated by the State Council. In December last year, CIRC and the Ministry of Science and Technology jointly launched a pilot project for sci-tech insurance. And then in 12 cities, we carried out pilot projects for sci-tech insurance products. Starting from 2010, we started having a suite of policies with deregulation on the offering of sci-tech insurance in key sectors. Very specific supportive policies were rolled out. By 2023, at the Central Government Financial Conference, sci-tech finance has been listed as the first of the 5 major tasks. Over the past 2 decades, there's been vigorous development of sci-tech insurance. 10 years ago, back in 2016, the total premium is less than 8 billion RMB yuan, with insured amount amounting to 1 trillion RMB yuan. Last year, total premium amount amounted to 80 billion RMB yuan, with insured amount of 80 trillion RMB yuan. We could see that the supportive structures are being amplified over time. Insurers, one after the other, have established dedicated departments, product teams, and KPIs for sci-tech insurance. And more insurance professionals are equipped with sci-tech and innovation knowledge. In terms of a product line, we have offered 8 sci-tech insurance product lines. In particular, we are putting in place a risk-sharing mechanism for sci-tech insurance. In terms of horizontal sharing, we have established commercial aviation and semiconductor insurance consortiums. And vertically speaking, we have developed reinsurance business for primary insurance. And the government is also providing subsidies or guarantees. And more risk management measures are also in place. Therefore, over the most recent past, substantial progress has been made in sharing of risks. Now, let me talk about our policy recommendations for sci-tech insurance. First, there should be a greater publicity and awareness campaign of those insurance policies because different decision makers might interpret sci-tech insurance in different ways. Therefore, we must strengthen education of sci-tech insurance. And human resources development should also be strengthened. And specific or professional sci-tech insurance intermediary services should be further developed. Secondly, we must put in place a sci-tech insurance data ecosystem with coordination by all the interested parties, with insurance, government regulators, and other participants. And we're also calling for a sustained sci-tech insurance policy structure. For example, we should further intensify national premium subsidy for sci-tech insurance with preferential tax policies as well. And the sci-tech insurance premiums should be incorporated into R&D expenses, for example. And there should be better accounting treatment of sci-tech premium expenses. Last but not the least, we should encourage more patient capital to participate in sci-tech insurance. So leveraging today's opportunity, let me share with you some key points without elaborating on all the details in the interest of time. Last but not the least, in the nutshell, out of so many uncertainties, when uncertainties are on the rise, let's leverage insurance to ingest more certainty. Thank you, Mr. Zhao. Yeah, it's a blue ocean opportunity. I mean, sci-tech insurance, and sci-tech insurance directly serves the purpose of building China into leading sci-tech power and a leading financial power. I've been reminded of time management. Next, let's invite Professor Xu Ming, professor and doctoral supervisor of East China University of Political Science and Law. The day before yesterday, President Governor Zhou Xiaochuan said that intrinsically finance is about data. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share with you how we should improve upon information disclosure, quality of information disclosure, so as to assist in the comprehensive investment and financing mechanisms reform packages. According to the 15th Five-Year Plan and other key policies, we must build China into a leading financial power, including building a bigger and greater and reformed capital market. For this round of reform on investment and on financing, a comprehensive suite of interconnected reform packages should be implemented. In this way, there should be greater coordination between investment and financing. Why is it so important? You know, in capital markets, it consists of financing and investment. For example, for Guotaijun and securities, for securities brokerages, you play the role of a bridge between investment and financing. With either financing or investment becoming problematic, the entire system or ecosystem will be undermined. That's why central government is asking for coordinated, comprehensive reform, both on investment and on financing. So why do I have to highlight this topic? The central government has asked for coordinated reforms, and I would like to interpret this policy imperative in the following ways. First, we're going to address structural issues and conflicts in the market. Conflict number one, in our financial market, there is a suboptimal structure in terms of too small percentage accounted for direct financing, while the bulk of the means of financing is indirect. And out of the total financing of 35.6 trillion RMB yuan, which is the total amount of financing, aggregate financing, out of 35.6 trillion, direct financing accounting for 40% at 16.7 trillion RMB yuan. But out of 16.7 trillion RMB yuan, most of it is government bond or corporate bond, plus corporate bond. Very little equity financing. By the end of 2025, total amount of equity financing amounted for 470 billion, accounting for 1.34% of aggregate financing and 2.8% of direct financing, even less with IPO financing. So in equity financing, IPO financing amounted to 130 plus billion RMB yuan, accounting for less than 0.8% of total direct financing and 0.34% of aggregate financing, direct plus indirect. You can see that we have a very small percentage of direct financing, but for equity financing, the proportion is even much smaller. So over the years, the government has advocated for intensified and greater direct financing. And there are a lot of IPO and bond issuance in Hong Kong in 2024. We came to a low point of less than 70 billion RMB yuan of IPO financing, which was a historical low. So that's a conflict and problem on the financing side. And secondly, the rate of securitization of assets is still very low in our capital market. By the end of 2025, the total market cap of the equity market was 123 trillion RMB yuan, a historical high. Last year, our GDP came to 140 plus trillion RMB yuan. So the securitization rate is roughly 88%. But how about the United States? The US GDP stood at $30 trillion plus. With this capital market, the total market cap amounted to almost 70 trillion with a securitization rate of nearly 230%, almost doubling that of ours, more than doubling. So that's another structural problem or a deficiency. So we do have a host of structural deficiencies in our capital market that must be addressed, especially on the direct financing and equity financing side. And secondly, talking about investment and financing in capital market in China, we are going through economic transformation. We are evolving from high-speed development to high-quality development. And needless to say, we are evolving from old quality productive forces to new quality productive forces with sci-tech developments, innovative developments. But they require a lot of capital. Banks cannot support all those needs. For most of the innovative startup companies, they need the support of the capital market. Therefore, for the new quality productive forces, we need to offer more financing channels. And without PE, VC financing and national capital platforms, as well as private equity funds for round A, round B, ultimately capital investment should exit from the project without an IPO channel and other exit strategies. Investors do not see a way out after they have made a sci-tech or innovation investment. That's a very big task ahead of us. And in terms of the aggregate, we need the reform both on the capital market side and direct financing side in order to build China into a leading financial power. There are numerous requirements on the financial sector. In particular, for the capital market, the requirements have a lot to do with investment and financing in terms of direct financing related initiatives. We need to establish powerful international financial centers in China as part and parcel of the bid to build a financial power. Whether your financial center is good or not, it depends on the capital market. For international financial centers, they must be backed by international capital markets. Therefore, internationalization market-based operations and rule of law are the three key pillars for having international financial centers. I used to work a lot with Mr. Qi on offering the Hong Kong-Shanghai Direct Connect mechanism. So if you want to have an international financial center, you must boast an international capital market. For example, if you want to have Shanghai as a major international financial market, the Shanghai Stock Exchange must be backed by an international capital market. Nowadays, it is still too much of a local dominance with very few international institutional investors. In contrast, in Hong Kong, New York, Tokyo, and London, they have a very high share of foreign or international institutional investors. Therefore, our capital markets must go global and build themselves into international markets. Both the primary second market and secondary market, there should be more reforms. But for investment and financing reform, there are so many ways of reform. Information disclosure is a very important part of such reforms. We must enhance the quality of information disclosure. For capital market in a nutshell, there are three sub-markets. First, an information market. Without information, there's no capital. Whether the information is complete, effective, and true and accurate, it is the very foundation of a well-functioning capital market, without which nothing is guaranteed. And then based on effective and truthful and accurate information, investors will be able to make decisions. So, the same thing, good quality information, investors will interpret news or bad news. Pro-investment or pro-risk. Listed companies, they are duty bound information disclosure. And the exchanges over the years have spanned on that, but there's still a lot able to. They must be able to provide an easy to understand information. On the investment side, with better information disclosure, will be bringing long-term capital. From investment perspective, there are still structural issues. In the we had 250 million accounts. Account for 99. And the information disclosure is enough to do so. In
employer did not have enough trust in me, saying, Pavel, come on, did not have enough trust in me, saying, Pavel, come on, what will you have interesting to say in front of the Chinese people about their own economy? So in wake of that remark, I asked my employer to let me come here in the way, in my own personal capacity, just to extend my hand for a dialogue. Why I decided to make this step? Because I fully agree with Barry Eichengreen that we are living in a totally bifurcated world. There are two different parallel worlds, and the sooner we accept that reality, the better it is for us. And the worst thing we can do, especially we representatives from the West, is to come here and to preach you or judging your achievements using our own principles. So I would like to express my humbleness that I came here to learn, to understand, and to show you my deepest respect for your achievements. I don't want to flatter you, but you need to understand that taking out of the poverty 800 million people is a unique achievement in the history of the mankind, and my task is to explore the role of the People Bank of China. And during the welcoming dinner which took place here on Sunday, I was really impressed with the words by the Governor Zhou, who said that People Bank of China, as its name suggests, tries to be very close to its own people. And indeed, this is the case, because when I look how the bank tries to design its structural policies, for which we have little understanding in Europe and in the Western world, I really start to embrace a different reality and a different dimension. Again, I don't want to flatter you, and I'm fully aware that our principles would not work here, most probably your principles would not work in the Western world. Still, having said that, I am in favor of a mutual dialogue and exchanging some experience in order not to commit the earlier mistakes. I need to say, with a great regret, that in the Western world, the central banks are under intense pressure. Why? Because they committed several mistakes, and hopefully the People Bank of China will not commit similar mistakes. What mistakes? Well, first of all, lack of the humbleness. As a central banker, I try to take account what people around me try to say about my own institution. And just to make it clear, I work for 3 different central banks, so it gives me more space to refer in this particular area. While central banks in Europe do not enjoy spectacular popularity. During the times of low inflation, they love to take all the credit for this achievement as if they were not aware of the great moderation. When the constellation has changed and we were hit by inflation, they started to blame everyone but not themselves. This is not the way people like it. Another issue, the famous mantra expressed by the former governor of the Bank of England, who said regarding the supervision and the global banks, yes, especially investment banks, that the banks are global when they are making business, but when they are in trouble or at the time of their death, all of a sudden they become domestic banks and they live at the expense of a taxpayer. Come on. Taxpayer doesn't like to be the victim of such policies. And the very last but not least, quantitative easing. And that is why I'm crossing my fingers for Pan Gongsheng not to pursue quantitative easing, because I can tell you what are the results of the quantitative easings. Huge balance sheets with enormous amounts of reserves for which central banks are paying remuneration. At a certain period of time, for instance, in the euro area, central banks were paying to the banks an interest rate of 4%, and in return, the same banks used to pay or to offer population 0% for their own deposits. This was another way to see the popularity of central bank being decreased. Obviously, as a genuine central banker, I know the arguments how to defend our policy, but unfortunately, I'm facing some time constraints, as a result of which I'm not able to present the line of defense. But as I said, central banks are not in a kind situation because they committed some mistakes, and furthermore, they have a very hostile press against themselves, because the press blames us for higher inflation with certain reason, because I guess that we need to express some humbleness. We saw that the money supply in year 2020, 2021 was rising like a hell, and we were behaving as if nothing had happened. So little wonder that we had to face inflation. And the other issue, right now we are facing spectacular losses, and here I have very mixed feelings, because the press in our countries is not enlightened enough to understand the accountancy of the central banks, and they blame us even if our responsibility for our losses is close to zero, because after all, being responsible for monetary policies and also for fiscal policy, after having acquired enormous amount of government debt, there is no other way other than to be exposed to the losses. So, as you see, even that we are very proud of our achievements, we have really very little to offer you as far as how to conduct central bank policies. So perhaps it is time to come here and learn something from you. Before I end, because I know that we are in a deficit, this is also another good sign. All the previous speakers from China, they had a surplus, because China is a surplus economy. Much of the Western economies are in deficit, so I am also in the red. But I would like to say something more regarding payment system, yes, and CBDC. You are a big pioneer, but please be aware of the discussions which were taking place in Europe. In Europe, we had two different attitudes toward digital currency. The Swedish attitude, they were extremely pro-digital currencies, even trying to draw parallels that both China and Sweden invented paper currency, so they will be the first to finalize with the paper currency, saying that the digital currency is the future. I remember that when I was the guest of the Riksbank, the Swedish central bank, which I respect a lot for their achievements, they were telling me that they are heading towards a cashless society. And I was very skeptical about that. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the Danish central bank, which, like my own central bank, has a terrific payment system, well developed. And the Danes said, look, with our payment system being so sophisticated, we see very little room for the digital currency to deliver some added value. And what was the further sequence of events? I dare to say that Danish were right, and Swedish had to learn some lessons, because, for instance, when I was in Sweden on several occasions prior to the COVID, even paying in cash was close to impossible. There were several shops where it was said cash is no longer accepted. Now it has changed. There is a law saying that for certain transactions, cash has to be accepted. Don't write cash too quickly. We are living in an aging society. Not everyone is up to the digital finances. please have some understanding for the older generation. They will really appreciate you. Having said that, again, thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to hear your questions.
Okay, thank you. 谢谢帕维尔。
Thank you, Mr. Powell, for your objective, external objective. U.S. has the Federal Reserve System, and China calls our central bank as People's Bank of China. Thank you for bringing us the external foreigners' quite objective perspective. So we will take some questions, put forward some questions for our panelists. First, from Mr. Powell. We've noticed that Poland Central Bank and Chinese Central Bank are adding gold to their reserve due to different reasons. What's your take?
Well, let me answer this question in a little bit humoristic way, that both banks are trying to defend the credibility of central banks, because when I was in London last year, I heard a very sarcastic remark about central banks, that central banks have a bizarre tendency of selling gold when it is cheap and buying it when it is expensive. Look at the example of the Bank of England, which sold its gold at the record low prices at around $258 per ounce. Yes, but this was sort of a, let's say, just a remark. Sticking to our country, I guess that there are some historical. Yes, unlike China, we had plenty of opportunities throughout our history to learn the importance of gold, yes, especially during the belligerent conflicts, especially during the Second World War. The gold was the difference between the death and the life. For instance, if your relative was in the concentration camp and if you wanted to get him out of this camp, no fiat currency was the issue of the conversation. This mission could only be accomplished with the gold. Another issue, geopolitical. We live quite close to a very important conflict, and I know that our two countries represent quite different attitudes regarding this conflict, but there is a conflict, yes, no matter what are our opinions regarding this conflict. And I dare to say that people are afraid of this conflict, that there will be an extension of this conflict, and our monetary authorities believe that in order to prepare to that conflict as good as it gets, it makes sense to purchase gold. Furthermore, you need to remember that Poland had for many years special tendency to preserve gold. During the Great Depression, Poland, along other Central European countries, formed the so-called Golden Bloc, and we were, in the wake of the Great Depression, among the last countries who gave up the convertibility. Another issue, you need to understand that if you look among those countries which are among the largest collectors of the gold reserves, these are countries which were hit by hyperinflation. Starting with Germany, I know that it may sound a little bit bizarre, but do not forget that Germany were hit by hyperinflation in 1924. Italy and France, they also had some experience with inflation or large inflation. Perhaps the only exception, because of historical reasons, is the United States of America. Yes, that country did not ever experience the inflation to the same extent like us other countries. So, summarize: geopolitical reasons, our painful history and tradition being always inclined to amass the gold. But before I finish my remarks, I want to say that I'm quite aware that even here in the audience there is one person who is very critical of our policies, saying that when you pursue foreign reserve management. Everything must be moderation. Moderation.
We remember that. And we will move on to next questions. Professor Xu, you've mentioned reliable, authentic, and timeliness are very important. What are other requests? Well, information disclosure is highly important. I didn't finish that. I want to make some follow-up comments. Reform of financing and investment depends on high-quality information disclosure, and we have 4 anchors. First, in mindset, we couldn't only emphasize on investment, rational long-term investment, and on financing, integrity, reasonable, and focus on return, on yields. So when we talk about the investment and the financing reform, we should emphasize both sides, in particular financing side. Security laws has been in place for a long time. In the future, codification of security law in investment and financing, we should have emphasis on both, like corporate law in the general article has emphasized entrepreneurship. Registration system should also be deepened and solidified. It should be information-centered, investment needs-oriented. What kind of investor information investors need must be disclosed to them. And next, information disclosure should be reshaped, differentiated, be brave, be reader-friendly. And fourth, in information disclosure, 4 cause supervision is needed. Review must be strict to understand this authenticity. And also, we should also have the ex ante and posterior monitoring, including the board of directors, the supervisors, and also the CFOs. They should have an accountability system, and we should be strict with the accountability system, in particular for the third-party fraud, like from the accounting firm, should be hardly cracked down. Thank you, Professor Xu, for putting forward these suggestions within an even shorter span of time. I hope all the answers can be within 1 minute. You mentioned the sci-tech insurance has its unique value from science, technology, and policy innovation. How can we have better synergy? Be brief in your answer. 1 sentence. If you want synergy, then we need everybody serving on their respective posts. Products should be the core to adapt to the needs. Second, policies should be the driving force. The supportive policies from the government can make breakthrough on information asymmetry, and when there is mismatch between the supply and demand and market dysfunction. Third, data and sci-tech should be an important supporting pillar so that the insurance transaction can be completed, the pricing can be fairer and more effective. Thank you, President Zhao. Coming back to Professor Huang. In history, we found 9 major countries, 3 financial powerhouses, and 4 major currencies. What might be your outlook in the further development of RMB? We have discussed Euro, US dollar, RMB. If we assess the importance of central banks, PBOC are among the top 3 central banks in the world, as observed by many international organizations. It is expected that within a short span of time, RMB can take up 1/3 of the total global settlement. Coming back to Director Qi Bin, in your speech, you mentioned the pension finance reform. You had your article on the great competition. You have been working in the front line of the financial sector. What is your expectation for the development of the financial market in China?
Well, our panelists have spoken a lot about this topic. And maybe you have read this book. I think there were two inspirations from it. The first one, in the whole process of development, it plays an irreplaceable role. And second, there's an order of development in the history involvement, as well as in the capital market. So we need to learn the experience and the lessons. And now we are in the era of the AI explosion. And it reminds me of some of the experiences of the past. At the end of the 1996, I started the work, and in 1997, I was on the OT, and on my way back, I saw a truck driving by, and it's dragging a billboard, and there's a line on the board, www.amazon.com. I didn't know what it was, so I searched it online, and Amazon was about to get listed. On the IPO day, it was 18, the lowest 5, and the highest $3,700. At that time, every day, dozens of companies go public in the Wall Street. And then Amazon survived, and the internet enterprises also existed. And on that day, I saw Amazon. I knew it would survive at the end if I were to know that it would be the winner. And I should have possessed the wisdom of the God, and it was possible. So I needed to be patient and wait for the judgment of the market. So now we are in the era of the AI, and we need to accelerate the development of the capital markets. That is the reform of the reform and the financing, as well as accelerate the support of the long-term capital. In 2007, I raised a notion that is to accelerate the Chinese version of 401k initiative. I heard a lot of discussions. Now, 20 years have passed. I think we are at the similar starting point. And I would like to quote Chairman Mao's words, that is, we need to fight and make efforts every day, and so that we can accelerate our endeavors. Thank you very much, and let's take a group photo. Our next panel, the topic is financial service innovation for the Belt and Road Initiative and the construction of the Western financial system.
A financial service innovation for the Belt and Road Initiative and construction of Western Financial Center. 有请会议主持人，清华大学五道口金融学院副院长、副教。
Now let's welcome the moderator of this session, Wang Zhenwei, Associate Dean and Associate Professor at Tsinghua PBCSF.
And Associate Professor, Tsinghua PBC School of Finance.
Distinguished leaders, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 2026 Tsinghua PBCSF Global Financial Forum. And now we would proceed to the keynote forum and the panel discussion with the title of the Belt and Road Initiative, Financial Service Innovation and Construction of the Western Financial Center. And we will discuss the demands and the common opportunities in financial cooperation and development with China. We will explore how Chengdu can serve as a financial center in Western China, build a financial service system with special features for the Belt and Road Initiative. I am the moderator for this panel. My name is Wang Zhengwei. Let me introduce the panelists for this session. They are the former Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, the former Governor of the National Bank of Kazakhstan, Mr. Karat Kalimbatov, and Deputy Minister of Investment and Trade Industry, Malaysia, Mr. Xin Zixing, the Secretary of the Party Committee and the Chairman of China Union Pay, Mr. Dong Junfeng, Executive Vice President of Silk Road Fund, Ms. Wang Dan, President of the Central Bank Integrated Business Unit at Huawei, Mr. Liu Feng. A big round of applause to welcome all the panelists. And I also want to thank the strategic partner to this forum, Shanghai Pudong Development Bank. We've already running a bit behind schedule, so let's get straight to the point. And we'll move on to the guest speaker session. And let's take a turn to speak for 5 minutes. The first speaker is Mr. Karat Kalimbatov, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think thank you for organizers to inviting me for this distinguished panel. So I think today we're going to talk about financial centers. We are in Kazakhstan developed recently new initiative which we call Astana International Financial Center. So this is a Eurasian financial hub which is connected the region of Central Asia, Caucasus, Mongolia, but also connected East and West. So what is the distinctions of this financial center? So I believe it's a very important de-risking platform. So de-risking platform consists from two very important parts, which is one is regulation for financial institution, and this regulation based on common law jurisdiction in Kazakhstan. So AFC is very similar to Hong Kong Financial Center. So it's like in Hong Kong, like in China, one country, two systems. So we have also two judicial systems in Kazakhstan. One is mainland and the other one is Astana International Financial Center. So I believe that financial center from very beginning been very well connected to China. So I think it's a very early stage. I think 10% of the companies which been registered in this financial center been from China. And also very important that the capital markets platform we created jointly with our colleagues from Shanghai Stock Exchange and from Silk Road Fund, which were the first investors and provide the technology. And so we work jointly and closely, and I believe this is the most important build stock exchange from scratch. We're also important that we develop in AFC the RMB offshore clearing center, and China Construction Bank was this particular hub for the institutions in AFC, and ICBC was a offshore clearing bank for institutions in mainland Kazakhstan. So I think this is very much important in terms of the new 5 years plan of internationalization of RMB. So the Kazakhstan is really well connected to this. And we try to establish the connect between Astana International Exchange and Shanghai Stock Exchange. Recently, we start to work also on creating the good connects between our capital markets, and many companies from Kazakhstan establish very good relationship, looking for fundraising in Shanghai Stock Exchange and in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So today we're talking about Chengdu. So I believe that Chengdu is a natural transport hub which is connecting ancient Belt and Road. And I think that Belt and Road initiative was first time announced in Kazakhstan by President Xi and in Nazarbayev University. So I believe that was also very important because Kazakhstan is the most important, let's say 80% of all trade flows across this dry route through Central Asia is moving around Kazakhstan. And AFC is also good for financial connectivity. But I think that after, let's say, recent 5 years, we are more focused not only about transport connectivity, but also financial connectivity, and the most important, digital connectivity. So we start to work with companies like Alipay, plus also with Tencent, which is looking for different fintech solutions. And from one side, and from the other side, the company like Huawei bringing to Kazakhstan new 5G technologies, smart city technologies, helping to Kazakhstani companies to build data centers. So I think in these terms, these 3 layers of connectivity, digital transport, physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and financial infrastructure allow us to build really good relationship. And establishing a financial hub and working with financial hubs in China, we working historically with Hong Kong and Shanghai, and now happy to work with the Chengdu Financial Center, which have been recently in a global financial index ratings, been in a 37th place, which is a very good achievement. So we are very open to do it from public and private sector as well. Thank you very much.
好的，感谢海拉特·克莱姆别特夫先生哈，他做了几个点。
Thank you very much, Mr. Kairat Kalimbetov. He's made some comparisons and made some suggestions. Now, Mr. Xin Ziqing, thank you very much.
First, I want to commend Chengdu for the bold ambition to become a Western financial hub and then linking Central Asia and Southeast Asia. I think this is a very interesting proposition because I think Malaysia also Southeast Asia also especially Malaysia is looking at Central Asia as one of the growth area. So I think linking Central Asia, Chengdu, at the western part of China and also Southeast Asia is a very interesting growth area. Malaysia, Southeast Asia, I think has a very long history with China. 700 years ago, when Zheng He xia Xiyang, and for thousands of years, Southeast Asia has been trading with China. And then fast forward to 2026, I want to give a few statistics. In 2025, the bilateral trade between Malaysia and China has reached all-time high to 925 billion renminbi. 2026, we expect a growth of 10%, more than 10%. I think it will reach 1 trillion renminbi between Malaysia and China. And China has been Malaysia's #1 trading partner for 17 years, consecutively. And Malaysia ringgit cross-border trade settlement using renminbi or ringgit has crossed 120 billion in 2025, meaning that kind of transactions between using ringgit and using renminbi has been there. So the cross-border trade has been very, very robust. Number 2, the approved investment from China into Malaysia has reached 100 billion in 2025. Mainly the investment is in high-value semiconductor, electrical and electronics, data centers, EVs, and green technology. And in 2025 also, we have recorded the highest ever tourist arrival into Malaysia. 3 million Chinese tourists has reached Malaysia's shores, more than 3 million. And from Chengdu itself, every day we have 5 direct flights to various parts of Malaysia, especially Kuala Lumpur, 3 direct flights, and then other cities, etc. So this kind of cross-border trade, investment, and tourists has created tremendous opportunities for financial services. So I think that this is a very interesting proposition. So 700 years ago, Zhenghe Xiaxiyang, 1,000 of trade experience with Southeast Asia. That's why I think presidency has rightly recoined the Belt and Road Initiative. Yeah? This is where I think we need to bring that kind of historical, historical partnership into the next level. And I want to say that Southeast Asia is now a robust country that is moving upward. It is a lot of middle power. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore. We have been a kind of a middle power, and we are a stable region with very robust financial services. I think this is create a lot of opportunities for both of us. Thank you.
感谢沈志勤先生。他呢从历史讲。
Thank you very much, Mr. Xin Zetin, and he talked about the history and the strength of Chengdu in this historical background. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Dong Junfeng. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am from China UnionPay, so I would like to make some remarks from the perspective of the geo-economic cooperation and the digital transition. I would like to share with you some of my reflections. First, on the regional cooperation, which encouraged the emergence of more financial demands. According to our observation, Chengdu is opening up a gateway into the hinterland area. In 2025, foreigners entering through airports into Chengdu exceed 1.7 million person times, next only to Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. These inbound personnel mostly come from the BRI initiatives, for example, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. And that incurred a lot of demands for cross-border payment. And they need diverse tools, such as the bank cards and the QR codes, etc. So their room for development is vast. In 2025, the imports and exports reached a historical high between China and Southeastern Asia and Central Asia, exceeding $1 trillion and $100 billion respectively. Chengdu, as a trade hub in the West, has an annual import and export volume of over 800 billion yuan. And last year, Chengdu launched the first freight train to Central Asia. And these trade cooperation relies on massive capital deliveries. It requires more stability in cross-border payment. And as a BRI expanded and BRICS are constantly expanded, the green finance and financial technology become the focus of the cooperation. Behind the South-South cooperation, there is a strong support of various mechanisms of financial cooperation, no matter it is the BRICS or the AIIB or the establishment of the Silk Road Fund. And both sides established the local currency swaps and the cross-border payment mechanisms. So it promoted the global South to participate in financial governance together. And secondly, to respond to the market demands efficiently. Market demand is the opportunities of development, and the demands outline the potential for development. Over 90% of countries and regions along the BRI can accept the China UnionPay card standards, and 1/3 of the market issued UnionPay cards. And the total number of issuance exceeded 200 million. And behind those numbers is the various demand for cross-border payment, and the demand to integrate the standards and the scenario of application, etc., in order to facilitate the cross-border cooperation. We rely on the government, the cooperation between governments and the cooperation between the networks to establish connectivity. And we already have established interoperability cooperation with more than 200 digital wallets in over 50 countries and markets. For example, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, etc. And some of the collaborations have been incorporated in the cooperation lists of the high-level international summits. And we also launched the BRI-themed business cards, etc.
And we have established dual brand card issuance with many partners overseas. We have explored convergence between emerging technologies and payment services. We have leveraged AI agents to provide natural language-based one-stop payment service for international visitors. We've always paid attention to working closely with regulators along BRI. And in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Singapore, we have worked with our local partners. We have licensed our chip QR code technology to our Laos partner, etc. And we are leveraging innovation to make financial services even more efficient. With the acceleration of AI and the new quality productive forces, we need to deepen and broaden financial services along the Belt and Road while leveraging AI to enhance the efficiency and resilience of regional financial cooperation with multi-modal inputs and more capable large language models. We're going to address the previous bottlenecks of differentiated services. And the payment services will be more proactive in responding to requirements and demands. And instead of just providing the settlement and clearing services, it will provide a smart foundation for economic interactions. We used to suffer from less efficient cross-border commerce. While leveraging AI, blockchain, and other emerging technologies, we're going to make cross-border payments more diversified, intuitive, efficient, and smooth, so as to facilitate the delivery of more and more cross-border payment solutions. But leveraging new technologies must be based on bottom lines, such as stability, regulatory compliance, observance of laws and regulations, data security, data privacy, and consumer protection. So for whatever pathway is adopted, fintech must be neutral, and we must prevent data monopoly. We must leverage even better services to enhance regional financial cooperation. Now, we have entered into a new phase of a higher quality BRI development. Going forward, China UnionPay is going to allocate more resources to the BRI countries, helping the build-up of financial centers in western part of China, such as Chengdu. So much for my sharing. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Chairman Dong, offering us the China UnionPay's perspective on data enablement and efficiency. Next, let me invite Madam Wang Dan, Deputy CEO of Silk Road Fund, to say a few words. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my great pleasure and privilege to represent Chairman Zhu Jun of Silk Road Fund to be present here, so as to talk about innovation of financial services along the Belt and Road, as well as the building of financial centers in western part of China. For the Silk Road Fund, it is a pragmatic approach to precisely meeting the needs of development along the Belt and Road. As a dedicated professional investor, we were established to provide long-term patient capital so as to make up for shortfalls in investment. Our shareholders consist of SAFE, SAFE, CICC, China Development Bank, and China Exim, Export-Import Bank. And our equity stock amounted to $40 billion and 180 billion RMB yuan. We have always observed market-based international operations. By Q1 2026, we have committed $28.7 billion of investment, covering 137 projects across 81 countries. It's worth mentioning that 77% of committed capital is invested to BRI countries. talking about innovation, enablement, empowerment of BRI development, we always observe 6 principles in our investment. Number 1, global vision or global horizon. Our mission is to identify potential partners around the world to provide them with capital. So far, we have provided services to over 60 BRI countries. In the future, there will be even more. For principle number 2, to be market-driven, market-oriented with innovation, it means you have to observe how market works. You have to observe international standards and professional standards. Our business operation is conducted to make sure that each and every project is viable and bankable and able to integrate into global financial system. Third principle is asset safety. In ensuring asset safety of our investments, we are providing BRI projects with long-standing and sustained support while making sure that our investments are delivering long-term benefits for the host countries. Number 4, we focus on equity investment. We prefer equity investment because it fits into the needs of emerging market economies. Unlike debt investment, equity investment is combining our interest with that of the project, providing required flexible capital structure for infrastructure projects and transitional projects. Number 5 is the internationalization of CNY. CNY is being extensively used in Malaysia, for example. So when conditions are ripe, we prefer using RMB first in our project. With growing international use of RMB, we're providing BRI countries with diversified financing channels while contributing to a more balanced and resilient global financial system. Number 6 is sustainable development or sustainability. With sustainable finance, we are creating long-term value. With this principle in mind, we are making sure that going beyond the initial investment period, we are here to stay to serve the economic stability and eco-services of the host countries. Looking to the future, we want to build ourselves, pressing ahead with 2 key transformations. First, we are evolving to be more proactive. We are evolving from a passive financial investor to an active investor, working together with sovereign wealth funds, leading industry players, and other GPs to build and enable joint investment vehicles and platforms. Second, we are making ourselves an enabling investor, evolving from minority equity holders and financial investors to an investor that enables early-stage development and enables supply chain cooperation while helping the portfolio companies foster their core competitiveness. Later, I'm going to share with you some concrete examples. Thank you, Ms. Wang Dan, talking about the operations of a Silk Road Fund and your 6 principles and future development directions, helping us better understand your fund. Now, Mr. Fernando Liu from Huawei. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm Liu Fei from Huawei. Looking at my business card, you will ask, what is the central bank BU of Huawei? Well, back in 2022, Huawei established a digital finance department. And this year, Chairman Ren Zhengfei asked for even deeper engagement in the financial sector. That's why we established the central bank BU within Huawei. I've been working in Huawei for 22 years. Before joining the central bank BU of Huawei, I worked overseas for 6 years. So I'm very glad to join the BRI discussion. Since the formation of the central bank BU of Huawei, we have enjoyed extensive support from our financial clients. Almost 5,600 clients have chosen Huawei, and we have 11,000 partners working together with Huawei, serving a global financial service sector. We have over 1,500 innovation partners who are working together with Huawei to offer innovative solutions to our financial sector clients. I'm very happy to come here in Chengdu. And we have a research center in Chengdu focused on storage. Now, our storage business has enjoyed a customer base covering top clients in the financial sector. Now, according to the Magic Quadrant of Gartner, Huawei has entered into the top quadrant of the Magic Quadrant of the storage industry. Huawei is ready to work together with all our partners to solve the real problems in the financial service industry. Thank you, Mr. Liu Fei. Looking at your introduction, I was equally puzzled. What is the central bank BU of Huawei? But now, thank you for your introduction. I'd like to thank all 5 of you for your excellent sharing. Now, I'm going to ask the first round of questions. The first round of questions is on differentiated opportunities and common opportunities. Please, based on your own country or practice, please share with us in global industrial chain, supply chain, and capital market, capital flows. Given all these changes along the Belt and Road, especially in Central Asia and Southeast Asia, what are the most pressing needs for financial services in these regions? And what is in common in terms of infrastructure and product deficiencies that must be made up for? Let's start with the former Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister of Kairat, to be followed by Deputy Minister Sim, and to be followed by others. Please, Mr. Kairat.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very important question. So back to the roots of Belt and Road. So just to remind you, the Belt and Road Initiative has a very ancient roots, which is based on ancient Silk Road, which is connected east and west since maybe 1,000 years of history. And it always was about trade. So it was trade of goods, of silk, of information. And I think, so now what we try to restore it, and Belt and Road is a global initiative by China, by President Xi, is something to kind of recreate this global trade route. And I think nowadays when we see this geopolitical turmoil, and especially recent events in GCC region, different conflicts, different wars, so it's very important how reliable this trade route. And this trade route across Central Asia, which is overland, connecting China with the European economy, China with Eurasia, I think this is very important that the trade route should be reliable and should deliver it not only goods, but also the financial payments and, let's say, all the data information has been mentioned. I really enjoy my colleague from Malaysia mentions that I like this triangle, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and China. So this is like where the global wealth now moving, and I think that the gravity of wealth here is increasing from, let's say, and we expect that it will be big economic growth. So back to the recent fifth year economic plan of China. So it's also very important just to say that it's now reforms. So moving just from growth for productivity growth with a high quality growth, which been mentioned by the on a recent government meeting and Communist Party meeting. So I think this is also very important signal to the rest of the world. So what we try now to recreate is we try to recreate all the 3 layers of like a physical connectivity and why we need physical connectivity. So first, I think that you know that the Kazakhstan, Central Asia is providing the significant opportunities for energy security of China. We are exporting oil and gas, so it's the biggest gas pipeline from Turkmenistan across Kazakhstan, which is 8,000 kilometers. Also the biggest oil pipeline from the Western Kazakhstan to Western China. So this is like very important. Also important to provide the raw material uranium for nuclear power industry here in China. This is like from this side to China. From China to Kazakhstan and Central Asia, is also the new technologies, like been mentioned by my colleague from Huawei, is a 5G, it's smart city technologies, it's a new cloud computing. So this is future, and I think it's also been mentioned in 5 years plan. So this is, I think, important for the countries in Central Asia to be also, to meet all the standards and the requirements of the new AI era. And the other one is the physical connectivity. So we have, for Kazakhstan, China is a trade partner number one, I believe. So we have a lot of the payments between the countries. But it's also very much important to focus on two, let's say, important stuff. So one is a long-term capital. As been mentioned, if we want to finance big projects like railways, like wind energy, solar energy, like smart cities, so we definitely need long-term capital. And my colleague from Silk Road Fund mentions that. So we need equity, not only equity capital or let's say good the credit lines, but we also need like a bankable ecosystem where we have meet all the requirements of the standards of regulations, of compliance, and this is, should be similar. And especially it's very important for small companies, so small and medium enterprises. So all the big corporations, they have their own compliance and different departments, but for small corporation, to do is like a one payment stop, has been mentioned by my colleague from China Union Pay. So this is also very much important that we have this like a common QR or common, let's say, different type of windows, which is allows to fintech to provide, let's say, money before the goods are coming to the consumers. So this is all like a big ecosystem. And I think that the long-term capital, digital connectivity, this is something which we are looking for. I think Kazakhstan and China in these terms in the same page. And for this, back to our kind of main topic, what is like a financial center on the west of China, like Chengdu can do, I think that is a creation of this ecosystem from this side. Is like how to protect investors, how to make the pipeline of the projects, how to make them bankable, how to make them commercially viable, how to be well regulated, and what would be if there would be any kind of investment disputes, what is the dispute resolution authorities. So I think for this, Chengdu is a great place. It's a natural hub, historical hub, and I believe that in our next 5-10 years agenda would be great to create this, let's say, physical, digital, and financial connects between us.
Okay, this session we are talking about opportunities. Yeah, so I think Malaysia, what Malaysia can offer. Yeah, first is a mature financial ecosystem. We have Asia. Rule of law is very important. Central banks, the financial services, what you call regulated in a very balancing innovation as well as security. Second is that Malaysia is in Southeast Asia, and a very deep end of Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia is very, very strong. Third, Malaysia can offer is political neutrality. Is France. We have 17 FTA, free trade agreements, with 9 multilateral free trade agreements, including CPTPP, RCEP, ASEAN, etc., etc. And then we also have about 8 FTAs bilateral. The recently concluded, including Korea, and we are about to conclude with FTA with European Union. So these are very good opportunities for Chinese goods, services to access to wider markets at a very low tariff. And then Malaysia is also very strong in semiconductor. 13% of global semiconductors in your phones, in your cars, comes from Malaysia. And I think the great opportunity for Malaysia to offer is Islamic finance. Islamic finance is, may not be very, very prominent in China, but in Southeast Asia, in Central Asia, Islamic finance and access to GCC countries Islamic finance is very important for Chengdu and China to understand, so that you can leverage on Islamic finance. Another opportunity is the digital economy framework due to science year 2026. This will create free trade, digital economy free trade zone, $2 trillion economy markets. So it's going to be signed, and a lot of interesting payment is being established. Give an example. When it comes to China, they have difficulty paying something. I have difficulty paying things. But I come here, I use very grow, yeah, the trajectory. Chengdu offer access to for Southeast Asia, Central Asia, to China's industrial and consumer markets. China has a lot of technology advancement, which I think developing countries like Malaysia and Kazakhstan and Central Asia, Southeast Asia needs that kind of access to technology, access to capital, and sophistication and complexity in industrial complexity. So together, we can always have that kind of synergy, creating a corridor. Yesterday, we talked about multilateralism, and then we talk about regionalization, because I think the world is full of black swan events, and I think this is where regionalization is very important in the wave. So when we talk about what kind of opportunities we can create together, one or two examples. I think Asia, even Central Asia, we are looking at a term capital investment and trade partnership and in financial services in a long-term way. We are not looking at short-term. So capital investment that brings industrial complexity is what we are looking at. To give you an example, Geely, Zhejiang Geely, Geely, they partner with Malaysia car manufacturer called Proton. The partnership started 2017. It's already almost 10 years. This created technology transfer, partnership, access to market, and capital investment. I think that is where it brings the Malaysian car manufacturers to the next level in terms of new EVs, advancement. I think that's where we are looking at. Also, we are looking at partnership with financial services, Pay, where we access tourist things in Malaysia, and Malaysian tourists come to Chengdu to have easy paying, buying, shopping. I think these are the things that we are looking at. In long terms, I hope they also look at meaning Chengdu can also Southeast Asia through financial centers such as or Malaysia, KLSE, so that it create robustness in capital market. And I think the key word is a long-term partnership, joint venture, where deep understanding and deep vision. I think a lot of Chinese companies are still new to Southeast Asian market, and they are looking at just another market, looking at how I penetrate this market. And I think this is where I think that kind of, we need to adjust that kind of China's, what you call, thinking, where I think it's more important to have understanding, genuineship and partnership that go for a long term. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dong, please. Well, I'd like to follow up with our two foreign guests. Two cases in Central Asia and Southeast Asia in financial cooperation, digital financial, Kazakhstan, Central Asian cards, along with the security cards for the risks. Street is to trade imported export. So the truck driver the cards, because this card may cross border. Union pays to these truck drivers their trade settlement and personal consumption. And for those who are engaged in between Kazakhstan and China, we also issue business cards to these traders to facilitate their cross-border trade settlement in dual currency, to avoid settlement via other currencies to reduce the cost of transaction. Therefore, in Central Asia, this is a BB also collaborate with digital wallets. PINnet, you've mentioned, evolved by collecting PINnet users to Chengdu for tourism. Or apply for they can use Malaysian bank to QR code, and so it is because of connected activity established by Malaysian partners to reduce the cost of cross-border people and cash. Either Central Asia or in other Belgian countries, but China had a deeper market with countries and the BRI countries. Our trade volume has been increasing to that lining with behind this digital structure card association have promoted the prosperity of transaction south and the geopolitical activity among us and show connectivity equally important. So Union National Card associations should make our country concrete contribution. And from the practice of private equity, however, common that is lack of which support long term. Would also like to in such a way support and modernization. Our colleague has mentioned as national in Astana Financial Center and exchange investment started in 2018. We acquired 50% of the equity from Astana Financial Center. It is an important international financial center under the BRI, and which is abbreviated as AIX. We aim to foster it into a full product line international exchange, an important platform for privatization of state-owned projects. In 2025, AIX maintained strong momentum. 195 issuers, 368 listed transaction tools. The transaction volume increased 67%. Second, in Uzbekistan, energy storage project. We know Chinese business have strength in battery. It is a project co-developed with China, the grid-side independent storage projects. Our equity share 51% to 4%. Silk Road Fund has contributed 850 million RMB, installed capacity 900 megawatts, total investment for 5.9 billion RMB. This has also testified we use equity leverage project. The establishment of the project, it can enhance stability, forcefully promote the green transition of Uzbekistan's economy. In Southeast Asia, we focused on low structure, in particular in education and healthcare, to alleviate scarcity of public resources. In 2025, we collaborated with Southeast private equity navies and invested in K-12 education group, Next Generation Schools. The project has total investment of 110 acres with 40 million. It is a leading provider. Organization has run 33 K-12 schools, providing 31,000 enrolled children. This investment can enable complete compulsory education, make up the loopholes in the sector, and foster the training of talent with Global Horizon. In Malaysia, as a core member of the consortium, participated in the investment in Apex Healthcare, a leading pharmaceutical group. We completed the privatization at a value of $470 million with 530 million from us, 14% of the total shares. It is also one of the biggest size of privatization transaction in Malaysia. Past 5 years, it is one of the most important transactions. Healthcare, life science have been used as a core part in promoting this. Also, the beauty healthy Silk Road. It is another solid steward. Being the energy project in or the social project in ASEAN and Southeast countries. Structuring is to make up the loopholes, remedy and satisfy people's needs. Thank you for your sharing, panelists. And for Huawei, I'd like to approach the top technical along with BRI countries, Southeast Asian countries, Central Asian countries. We have been discussing our holistic situation. We noticed that the technical differences can be classified into 5 categories. First level, technical development trends have brought both opportunities and challenges. We have been talking AI over the past few days, and Huawei has been discussing how AI can empower financial sector. We heard quantum application. 90% of the central banks have come to Huawei to discuss how quantum can enable finance. So these are technological development trends impact on the factor in opportunities. And second, finance is to serve industrial development. Huawei as a company establishing global footprint every day, every moment, in every corner of the world. Since our branches are receiving the global business of Chinese enterprises, they want to know how Huawei is rising in overseas. That perspective and business and very concerned about the overall financial financial environment. They ask how they can be operating compliantly. From that perspective, and from the perspective of a business entity, financial environment in a foreign country is important in the sense that it must be stable and support innovation. And third, how finance supports the overall economic development. There are three pillars. First, financial infrastructure. There is a major variance among different countries. For the clients that we are engaged with, some countries are taking the lead in financial infrastructure. There are also countries where infrastructure is based on a major challenge. AI computing power also vary and quite patchy across the world. There are promoting inclusive finance. The card holders are only 1.5% and even less in certain countries. And for the smart connected smartphone, the smartphones are also possessed by only a small part of the population, posing great challenge for technological providers as that. And next, shortly before, Governor mentioned finance is also the IT industry. If you look at the financial data across the world, everybody is talking about AI. Without data, we cannot talk about anything. Finance is a highly professional industry. Without the accumulation of high-quality data sets, we cannot support high-quality, effective financial innovation. Chairman Dong has just mentioned that he has been consistently promoting the development of high-quality financial infrastructure on behalf of China. The trend we observe is that some countries are first movers, and they have the awareness to promote financial infrastructure and building consistently high-quality financial data sets. And next, the most important, talent cultivation. Countries vary in their investment into the option of financial talents. Some countries attach great importance to this aspect, and some countries are still laggard in their awareness. Financial talents cultivation, financial technology research are quite patchy among different countries. Therefore, we do see risks and opportunities from external factors, domestic drivers, infrastructure evenness, computing power, evolving AI needs, high-quality data sets, and the pipeline talents are the major forces that we should pay attention to. Huawei has been collaborating, discussing with the countries we are in. We hope with our continuous efforts, along with our partners, we can help the countries we are in to sustain long-term development in the financial sector. Thank you, our panelists. In the first round of discussion, we find different needs from different localities, and different institutions have their respective advantages in cross-border transaction, talents cultivation, and infrastructure connectivity, common challenges.
You know that Chengdu is hailed as the land of abundance and also the host city of this financial forum. Chengdu has given all the revenues it has this forum. So the question goes to Chengdu, how to build a future financial center in west of China for Chengdu. So what suggestions do you have? So I would like to ask industrial investment, finance, digital finance, financial infrastructure. In which sector can Chengdu form a unique advantage? And let's take the order. So we would invite Mr. Liu Fei to speak first, and Mr. Karim Betov would be the last speaker. And there are 25 minutes papa of this session. Just to remind you that amongst the audience, we still have a lot of them passionate to ask questions. So each panelist to manage their time within 3 to 4 minutes. At the onset, I said that Chengdu is an innovative city. It's the first paper money in Bonn. So from antiquity, Chengdu has the legacy of financial innovation. And facing the Belt and Road Initiative and Southeast Asia, I think positioning itself as the gateway of financial innovation. So for Chengdu and also Sichuan provincial government, please continue your investment in finance. And I aforementioned several points. For example, cross-border payment. At this point, I think Chengdu catches itself as a of cross-border payment, so that the investors can accelerate their transaction and accomplish the efficient flow of capital, information, etc., as well as logistics. And secondly, Chengdu itself is a talent highland. Huawei every year number of fresh graduates from Chengdu. So for talents in Chengdu, we have great confidence. So in terms of the financial talent, we encourage the Chengdu municipal government to encourage those talents to go global and cultivate more talents locally. And thirdly, we think Chengdu itself also have some characteristic industries, including the culture industry. We also see that the industries in China are highly complementary with those in Southeast Asia. For example, the fresh fruits from Southeast Asia, or the dairy from the Central Asia. And for example, Huawei's employees, after everybody can enjoy the delicious food. And you can see that we can leverage the advantages of China's cultural tourism to bring them overseas and accelerate the economic and the industrial exchanges between China and other countries. Through live streaming sales, we can better interact with the overseas markets and help the local economy to develop faster. And this would be more valuable for Chengdu to build itself as a financial bridgehead. Thank you. Well, Chengdu as a hub in Western China has a very solid industrial foundation. It has a very distinctive strategic positioning. So the question is, what are the 3 priority areas for Chengdu to focus on in the next 3 to 5 years? Well, I have 3 suggestions. First, deepen the synergy between industry and finance and empower the expansion of the BRI market. The prosperity of financial center can't be achieved with support of the real economy. In recent years, the SRF has actively engaged with Chinese entities in cooperation, such as China Energy Engineering Group and JD.com. We signed the strategic cooperation arrangements, and relying on Chengdu's distinctive strength, we look forward to working with the local leading enterprises and establish the industry line. And currently, we are working with New Hope Group, which is a local company in Chengdu. We specifically work with its feed sector. The feed products of New Hope are sold in Africa and many countries in Southeast Asia. There should be considerable growth. By integrating the high-quality industrial resources with effectively, we will open up new growth frontiers in the market. Similar to the previous speaker, we need to build a diversified cross-border financial service system so we can leverage financial innovation to significantly enhance cross-border service capabilities. By doing so, we can efficiently promote the entire western region of China to connect even more closely and interact with the BRI countries in terms of the flow of capital, industry, and resources. And thirdly, focus capital on Chengdu's characteristic industrial advantages. Chengdu can channel financial support to its leading-edge areas, namely technology, green energy, high-end equipment manufacturing, biomedicine, and modern agriculture. through this forum and of gathering with colleagues in Chengdu, the SRF looks forward to working with outstanding Chengdu enterprises and in explore the cooperation opportunities. Thank you. 3 suggestions from me. First, cross-border finance. Because in China's strategy of the new land sea corridor in the West, Chengdu is a very important way. This initiative spans 13 provinces and municipalities in Chengdu, in China, and the West is its hub. The land sea corridor from the northwest to South and Southeast Asia. So cross-border trade and personnel exchanges will become even more active. In terms of cross-border finance, in terms of cross-border e-commerce, cross-border trade settlements, and the cross-border retail payment system. So, for example, the interconnectivity of QR code. The financial institutions, including the banks and the fintech enterprises, have a very broad space of it. A movie that has been a hot topic these days is Ama's Love Letter, which happened last century, between the 19th century to the 20th century. In that movie, there was a showcase of the remittance, which seemed to be very inefficient today. For a long time, the cross-border remittance have carried the nostalgia of the Chinese people. So even today, I believe there are still various cross-border trades and demands for remittance settlements that needs to be better addressed. Second, the sci-tech finance. Chengdu is a demonstration zone for sci-tech finance. Chengdu should attach great importance to the application of AI in this area. Earlier, that the Union Pay recently released APOP, an open protocol for intelligent payment, to address the trust-related problems. For example, the trust in the identity of intelligent agents, the authentication during the intelligent agent transaction, and trust in genuine transaction intentions. Therefore, that if Chengdu's financial institutions, including card issuing banks, acquiring institutions and financial constitute many of their products or services, the AI's impact and their growth. Third, inclusive finance. Chengdu is capital, so it has a siphon. It's a magnet. The population here is 22 million. The other towns and cities are weaker compared to Chengdu. So in this pattern, we need to think of leveraging the lower tier markets developed in trade and circulation, capital and industry, so that the GDPs of different areas could be more balanced across Sichuan province. I think the financial institutions in Chengdu can leverage data modeling and inclusive finance products. For example, like Huiyi Dai and Nongdai Tong, which are loan products to help the agricultural growth and SME. So the financial institutions, you can reach out to Union Pay because we have data products to support you.
In charge of investment, trade, and industry. So we are constantly looking at the trends, what will happen in 3 to 5 years' time. So in 3 to 5 years' time, I see a few trends. Number one, the regionalization. A region that is stable will tend to benefit in terms of investment and trade. In terms of Malaysia and China, the first wave of China's investment is usually on the industry, manufacturing. So manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing has already landed in Malaysia, be it semiconductors or kinds of manufacturing. And after that, with people will go because manufacturing needs expertise, people are going. And then because of China and Malaysia, we have visa-free, visa-free for 90 days in a year. So a lot of tourists has come to Malaysia, Malaysian tourists come to in Chengdu, etc. I see the next wave is about financial services, because when you have investment, billions of investment, you have billions of people traveling both ways, need financial services. That's where a lot of services has now come to my ministry asking for advice, etc. I want to give you one example. Just a couple, 2 months ago, one company, great, Sunrate is a platform that do B2B payment trade, B2B trading services, payment services for business to business, especially for small and medium enterprise. So they have opened up in Malaysia, and then within business so good, they want to from 100 staff to 300 to 150 staff to 300 staff, meaning this kind of robust trading, robust financial services is there. So I want to say that in 3 to 5 years' time, there will be plenty of opportunities for financial services. In Malaysia, we are balancing between security, cybersecurity, and financial stability with innovation. So we are slowly open up to financial services innovation, like Sunrate, and Pay, and etc. And of course, future Huawei. Huawei has a very big presence in Malaysia. Huawei's global training center is in KL, in Kuala Lumpur. So this kind of trainings, etc., is going on there. So in terms of financial, in terms of 人才, all kinds of talents, I think it up. And history has proven Malaysia, the close to China, we have record-breaking every year in terms of trade, in terms of investment, in tourist arrival, record after record for past 70. I believe the kind of closeness and collaboration better.
Yeah, let me also echo to my colleagues. You ask us to focus on 3 main dimensions: how to help to among the financial centers. So I think there are like 3 main dimensions. One is the first one is I think like investment ecosystem. In investment ecosystem, so it's very much important. So usually it's like a banks or multilateral development banks, or like equity partners like Silk Road Fund or big multilateral banks, Asian infrastructure investment bank. So that's all kind of the scope of institutions which are happy to provide loans or to provide equity. But here is very much important how much bankable or investable this type of projects. And I think what we need some facilities which will help to to build the projects pipelines. Let's say in Hong Kong, for example, Structure Financing Facility Office, which under HKMA authorities, where we try to bring all the initiators of the projects, bankers, and all the people who are related, build like a right ecosystem around the projects. So I think this is very much important if China to lead investment to Central Asia, Southeast Asia. This is very much important. Number two, I think that financial connectivity been mentioned. So part of the financial connectivity been mentioned, my colleagues from China UnionPay. So this is interoperability of our payments cards and in terms of the cooperation on between traders, between small and medium enterprises, between big conglomerates. So we should simplify the life business to business, because it's very much important how we is helping to develop it proper way. And I think not only cross-border payments, but also the connect between capital markets, let's say between like Kazakhstan and China, the terms, and particularly Kazakhstan and Shanghai, Astana International Exchange and Shanghai Stock Exchange, Hong Kong Stock Exchange. I think Chengdu should do something in partnership with other financial centers in China. The other one is the part of this financial connectivity, been mentioned my colleague of Malaysia, is relying on rule of law. So this is something which is, again, like what should protect investors, what should protect the bankers, so how this entire investment scheme will work. So for changes, they look for partnership with Hong Kong or Singapore, so just to understand the investment platform and working and how we can help to each other. And number three, I believe it's a digital connectivity. It's completely just now. So I think that we started the cooperation and Huawei, I think, pioneering this, like with 5G smart cities. Now we're talking about AI computing. And I think Kazakhstan and all Central Asia countries want to develop the AI computing power. So we want to develop also in Kazakhstan the regional AI hub. So we're working with like global leaders like NVIDIA from one side and like Huawei from the other. So this is like, it would be completely different story. The AI will help us to manage properly all the data. So here again, very important, what would be the data security, what would be the data governance, so how we will build this. I think this all going to build on two very important stuff. One is the trust between each other, and the other one is the human capital. So very important for Chengdu, which I know that so many good universities here have been mentioned, like many graduates are working in the best companies here in China. Maybe to prepare graduates which will know very well standards, not only in China, but in other Belt and Road countries. So this will kind of create a group of people who kind of understand and to help smooth trade, investment flows, and tourism flow. So I believe the Chengdu is a very fantastic geographic position. So for example, a direct flight between Chengdu and Almaty is the biggest city in Kazakhstan. It's just 4 hours. And it's like it's next door, let's say. And we believe that with increased this exchange of tourism, we will build our prosperity together. And I wish to be successful financial center.
好的，非常感谢哈。各位嘉宾的回应呢
Thank you very much. So the responses from National Horizon are very targeted to Chengdu, and we would forward your suggestions to the corresponding departments and authorities. And I would invite the panelists to stay tuned with the new developments in Chengdu. Open up the floor for questions.
举手示意。
If you have any questions, please raise your hands and please ask your question after getting the mic. Take a total of 2 or 3 countries. Please be very concise in asking your question. Hello, Mr. Wang. I'm an alumnus.
And first, I want to say thank you very much for your insightful remarks. And you mentioned IMB Clearing Center and Kazakhstan's role in the IMB internationalism. And a recent development caught our attention is Kazakhstan bond was priced at 2.18%. It's only 40-60 basis points above Chinese sovereign. So from your perspective, do you think this is mainly a temporary capital recycling phenomena, or do you think this is a beginning of a structural repressing of Kazakhstan risks by Chinese institutions? And another question is that I think we all know that you are the former banker and governor of AIFC, but what you have built with AIFC is genuinely impressive from our side, I think, right now. But when you started this initiative back in 2018, so did you expect it would take this long to get Chinese institutions to pay serious attention to AIFC? And you feel that maybe the moment is finally here right now? Or when Chinese institutions begin to see AIFC as a meaningful platform for maybe Euro-Asia connectivity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me start from the first questions. I think I mentioned about connectivity, financial connectivity. So this is what is connect Kazakhstan and China. So I think that financial institutions and companies from Kazakhstan start to look for fundraising in different Chinese, so including Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And what was recently, let's mention sovereign wealth fund Samruk Kazina, but also the sovereign fund Baitirek. So they issue panda bonds. So it was a huge success in Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and it's like a first listing in this exchange. I believe it's only beginning. So what we expect that so many companies, for example, I am currently a member of the board of directors of Freedom Holding Corp, so which is looking for fundraising. So maybe it will be also dual listing in Astana International Exchange and Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It's already been happened dual listing for one Chinese company working in Kazakhstan for copper for projects, which made successful listing and been oversubscribed in Astana Exchange and in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So I think that this cooperation between capital markets is going to increase dramatically. And this is, again, like connected for China. So Kazakhstan is a natural partner to be considered as a part of the Belt and Road or Greater China economy plus, let's say. This is something which I think the Kazakhstan is looking for, is a great trend. But I think that mention about the financial connectivity is also very important to mention. My colleague from China Union Pay mentioned that the Halyk Bank is the #1 bank in Kazakhstan, signed up. We already have a great agreement, cooperation with China Union Pay. But also the Kaspi KZ have a great cooperation with Alipay Plus, and recently Tencent invested as investor to Kaspi KZ. And Freedom Holding recently signed up also the great agreement with China Union Pay. So I believe the top banks in Kazakhstan would cooperate to create this smooth one-stop payment system between our countries. So back to Astana International Financial Center. So this initiative was born 10 years ago. So for Chinese company, not only in Kazakhstan, but Asia in general. In the first 5 years, we mostly like 200 companies from China ordered. I give you some big, like Bank, China, Shanghai Stock Exchange, still invested to International Exchange, and it was also the financial institutions. The CCB become a RMB clearing, RMB offshore clearing center for AIFC. ICBC become such a center for mainland Kazakhstan, and Bank of China is also working in Kazakhstan, which is very important. So I think it's now a huge success. More than $20 billion been invested through AIFC to Kazakhstan, and AIFC continue to become a successful platform. One of the success kind of science, how to measure its success. I think that it's very important when the other countries get some examples from AIFC. I think number of the financial centers start to be created in Central Asia, in Caucasus, it's in Baku, in Tashkent, in Kyrgyzstan. So it's kind of a new stories. So one particular story in GCC region, Oman start to initiate, or Sultanate of Oman initiated international financial center recently, and they also took the model of Astana International Financial Center. We are now helping and advising them to establish this relationship. As been mentioned by my colleague from Malaysia, this kind of a big triangle like Middle Asia, China. So this is something which would be the economy, and with the financial centers will help to develop cooperation between us. Thank you.
好，时间所限，我们再留一个问题哈。
We have only one question, an opportunity for the last question.
Okay, I'm from National
最
Business
好是一个
Daily.
问题哈。
Okay, 那我提问中国银联董。
Question is for Chairman Dong of China Union Pay. In cross-border payments and internationalization of RMB, what are the concrete initiatives on the part of the Union Pay? Well, thank you. That's a very big question for internationalization of RMB. That's a key topic for Chinese government and the PBOC. Now, it's a natural result of financial developments and infrastructure development. Our counterparts in the overseas markets have growing requirements on our services. As one of the participant parties, China Union Pay is to putting together a diversified payment system, including RMB-denominated China Union. We have issued our cards in 85 markets, 130 countries and regions accept China Union Pay cards. And there are multiple clearing currencies, including USD, Euro, CNY, and Japanese yen. Now, the percentage of RMB is exceeding 20% in all the currency transactions, all currency denominated transactions processed. We are making clearing more efficient while reducing political and other risks. And China Union Pay a natural choice. And I've talked about cross-border QR scan-based payment service witnessed by the governors of an Indonesian central bank. We implemented the interoperability of our wallets working in the others country. We have enabled the one-point access with ASPI, the National Payment Service of Indonesia, supported by Chinese CNY and Indonesian rupiah. So, with the issuance of RMB China Union cards and with bilateral settlement services and with wholesale collaboration with a virtual business card based on China Union Pay, we are satisfying a lot of requirements and demands with lower cost and high efficiency. For example, for trade settlements, with a global trading network throughout the world. When you use the China Union Pay card, you will be able to process transactions within the network of our card without going to other networks. And we are putting together a clearing network. There are lots of nodes. We have 2,600 nodes of this clearing network, including members and issuing banks and large acquirers and service providers around the world. Thanks to 2,600 nodes in our network, we have an extensive network to support more and more cross-border usage of RMB. I'd like to thank both of you for your questions and answers. We have had a wonderful discussion from cooperation to Chengdu as a financial center and to suggestions and proposals. I'd like to thank all the panelists for excellent sharing. I'd like to thank all the audience and on-site and online. We're going to talk about new quality productive forces enabled by scientific innovations this afternoon. Please stay.
术后，工作人员将进行会上。
After the morning session, we are please bring all your personal belongings. This afternoon, we are going to talk about sci-tech innovation and the longevity economy. We're going to resume our session at 1:30 p.m. sharp.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the end of the morning sessions, the staff will now clear the venue. Please take all your belongings with you. The afternoon sessions will be Technology Finance Empowering Emerging Industries.